Hello and welcome to the English Talk community. Today I want to talk to you about something that can completely change the way you speak English. If you have ever felt like your English sounds too stiff, too formal, or maybe too much like a textbook, you are not alone. Many learners feel the same. And the good news is, there is a way to make your English sound natural, alive, and closer to the way real people actually speak. I know how frustrating it can be when you already know many words, when you can understand movies, podcasts, or even books. But when it is time to speak, your sentences feel robotic. Maybe you worry too much about grammar rules. Maybe you translate from your native language in your head. Or maybe you are simply afraid of making mistakes. I understand this feeling, and that is exactly why we are here today. In this episode, you will discover how to move from textbook English to real conversation English. I will share simple tips, real examples, and easy strategies you can apply immediately. You don't need to speak perfectly. What you need is to speak naturally, and that is exactly what we are going to practice together. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to support this community. If you believe this kind of practice can help you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like this episode. It is a small action, but it makes a huge difference. It helps us reach more people who, just like you, want to feel confident when speaking English. So let's take this step together, and let's start building a more natural way of speaking. When you think about the moments when you try to speak English, what is the first feeling that comes to you? For many people, it is pressure. The pressure to sound correct, the pressure to remember grammar rules, the pressure to avoid mistakes. This pressure can make your words feel heavy, like you are carrying a weight every time you open your mouth. And when speaking feels heavy, it becomes less natural. I want you to imagine a moment when you are talking in your own language with a close friend. Do you think about every rule before you speak? Of course not. You just say what comes to your mind. You are relaxed. You use simple words. You use your hands, your face, and even silence. That is what natural communication feels like. The goal here is to bring some of that feeling into your English conversations. One of the biggest obstacles is the idea that you must speak perfectly. Perfection creates distance. Natural conversation creates connection. And connection is what people really care about. Think about the last time someone spoke to you in broken English. Did you focus on their mistakes, or did you try to understand what they meant? Most of the time, we care more about the meaning, not the grammar. So the first step is to release yourself from this pressure. Your English doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful. In fact, sometimes simple English is the most effective English. You don't need long, complicated words to sound intelligent. You don't need perfect grammar to make friends. What you need is clarity and presence. Here's something interesting. People often think that learning more vocabulary is the secret to sounding natural. But many native speakers use very basic words every day. For example, instead of saying, "I am exhausted," most people just say, "I'm really tired." Instead of saying, "I would appreciate your assistance," they simply say, "Can you help me?" The natural version is always shorter, simpler, and lighter. Let me give you a practical exercise you can try. The next time you want to say something in English, ask yourself, "How would I say this if I were speaking to a child?" This question forces you to remove unnecessary complexity. It helps you focus on the message, not the decoration. And when you do this, your English becomes clear, warm, and natural. Another common challenge is translation. Maybe you are still translating every sentence in your head before you speak. This slows you down and makes your speech sound unnatural. Imagine you are in a conversation and someone asks, "How's your day going?" If you start thinking in your language first, then translating word by word, your answer will sound delayed, and maybe even strange. But if you train yourself to respond in English directly, you will sound more natural and spontaneous. How do you train for this? One way is shadowing. Shadowing means listening to short sentences in English and repeating them immediately, trying to match the rhythm and the flow. Don't focus on every word. Focus on the melody of the sentence. Because language is not only about words, it's about rhythm, pauses, and emotion. Think about this. When native speakers talk, they don't speak word by word. They speak in chunks. For example, instead of saying each word separately like, I don't know, they say it together. I don't know. It flows as one piece. If you practice speaking in chunks, your English will sound more natural instantly. Here's a small challenge for you. Today, pick one phrase you hear often, like, how are you doing? Instead of just understanding it, practice saying it as one piece of sound, not 4 separate words. Repeat it until it feels automatic. Then, when someone asks you the same question, your answer will come naturally, without effort. Another important detail is your tone. Many learners speak with a flat voice because they are too focused on being correct. But natural English has music in it. Imagine someone saying, really, with surprise. The voice goes up. Or saying, really, with doubt. The same word, but the tone changes the meaning completely. If you practice playing with your tone, your English will feel alive, not robotic. I also want you to think about pauses. Many learners are afraid of silence, so they fill every moment with words. But natural speakers pause all the time. Pauses show confidence. They give space for the listener. They also give you time to think. So if you don't know what to say immediately, just take a breath. That pause makes you sound calm and natural. At this point, you might be wondering, but how do I practice this if I don't have many people to speak with? That is a very good question, and I will share a simple method with you soon that can help you practice even if you are alone. But before we go there, I want you to reflect on this. Natural English is not about knowing everything. It is about using what you already know with confidence. You see, when you try to speak like a textbook, you create a distance between yourself and the other person. But when you allow yourself to speak simply, to speak like a human, you invite connection. And connection is the real goal of communication. Even if you only use basic words, if your words carry emotion, people will feel close to you. There is a story I want to tell you later about a student who discovered this in a surprising way, but I will save it for a little bit. For now, keep this in mind. People remember how you make them feel, not how many grammar rules you know. So the journey we are taking here is about removing the layers that make your English heavy and finding the simple, natural way that allows you to express who you really are. You already have the words. Now, it's about using them with freedom. Let's imagine a situation. You are at a coffee shop and someone next to you smiles and says, "Hey, do you come here often?" Right now, in your mind, you might start searching for the right sentence. Maybe you think of something like, "Yes, I usually attend this place during the mornings." That is correct, but does it sound natural? Not really. A more natural answer would be, "Yeah, I come here a lot." Or even, "Yeah, I'm here most mornings." Simple, short, natural. This is where many learners struggle. You know how to say the formal sentence, but in real life, people don't speak that way. They use contractions, they cut words, they keep it simple. Instead of "I cannot," people say "I can't." Instead of "I do not know," they say "I don't know." This doesn't mean you should forget correct grammar. It simply means that in daily conversations, people choose the lighter version. Let me give you another example. Imagine someone asks you, "What did you do over the weekend?" Your textbook brain might prepare an answer like, I went to the shopping center with my family, and afterward, we ate at a very nice restaurant. Nothing wrong with that, but listen to the natural version. I went to the mall with my family, and then we grabbed some food. See the difference? It's the same idea, but it feels more like something you would actually hear from a friend. You can practice this skill by taking formal sentences and rewriting them in a casual way. Try this right now. Take the sentence, I would like to order a cup of coffee. Now, make it simpler. A natural version could be, can I get a coffee? Or even, I'll take a coffee. Both versions are more common in real life. Another useful practice is paying attention to filler words. Native speakers use fillers all the time. Words like, well, actually, or kind of. Thus, for example, instead of saying, I think this movie is good, you might hear, well, I think the movie's pretty good. Or, it's kind of interesting. These small words add rhythm to your speech and make you sound more natural. But be careful not to overuse them. Just add them naturally, like a little spice in your food. Now let's talk about real situations where this matters. Imagine you are meeting someone for the first time. If you speak too formally, the other person might feel distance. But if you use natural, relaxed English, you build connection. For example, instead of saying, it is a pleasure to meet you, you can simply say, nice to meet you. Both are correct, but one feels lighter, friendlier, more real. Think about conversations at work. If your colleague asks, can you finish this today? You don't need to answer, yes, I will complete it by the end of the day. You can just say, yeah, I'll finish it today. The meaning is the same, but the second answer feels smoother. Now let's bring in listening practice, because speaking naturally starts with listening naturally. When you watch a movie or a series, don't just focus on understanding the story. Pay attention to how characters answer simple questions. Notice how often they use short phrases. Notice how they skip words. For example, instead of, are you going to the party? You might hear, you going to the party? This is common in casual speech. Here's a small exercise you can do every day. Pick one scene from a series, maybe just 20 seconds long. Listen carefully to the way people talk. Write down 1 or 2 sentences. Then, practice saying them out loud, exactly as you heard them. Not slowly, not word by word, but with the same rhythm and tone. This way, you are not just learning English, you are copying the flow of real English. I know what you might be thinking, but if I copy native speakers, will people think I am trying too hard? The answer is no. People will think you sound natural. Because natural English is not about inventing something new. It's about following the rhythm that already exists. Another powerful way to practice is role play. Imagine yourself in everyday situations, ordering food, meeting someone new, asking for directions. Speak out loud, as if you are really there. For example, imagine you are in a restaurant. The waiter asks, what can I get you? You answer, can I get the chicken sandwich, please? Simple, natural. Practice these little dialogues with yourself. The more you do, the more automatic they become. Let's go back to something I mentioned earlier. Pauses. In real conversations, silence is part of the flow. If someone asks you, so what do you do? And you need a moment, don't panic. You can say, well, and pause. This gives you time to think, and it makes your answer sound natural. Compare that to freezing in silence. The small, well, keeps the rhythm alive. Now, I want to give you another exercise. Record yourself speaking. Yes, I know it feels uncomfortable at first, but it is powerful. Choose a simple topic, like my last weekend or my favorite food. Speak for 1 or 2 minutes, then listen to the recording. Ask yourself, does it sound natural or does it sound like I am reading from a textbook? If it sounds too formal, try again. But this time, use shorter sentences, contractions, and fillers. Listen again. Each time, your speech will feel more natural. You don't need to share these recordings with anyone. This is just for you. But over time, you will hear your progress. You will notice that your voice becomes lighter, smoother, and closer to the way real conversations happen. I want to remind you of something important here. Natural English is not about throwing away your knowledge. It is not about ignoring grammar or forgetting vocabulary. It is about balance. You already know enough rules. Now it is time to use that knowledge in a way that feels human. And trust me, you are capable of this. Later in this episode, I will share the story of a learner who transformed her English just by making one small change. That story will show you that you don't need years of study to sound natural. Sometimes, you just need a shift in perspective. But we will come back to that soon. For now, I want you to remember this. The next time you speak English, don't aim for perfection. Aim for connection. Choose the simple word, use the short phrase. Add a little tone. Take a pause when you need it. This is how your English will start to sound less like a textbook and more like you. Have you ever noticed how different your English sounds when you are relaxed compared to when you are nervous? When you are relaxed, your sentences come out faster, smoother, and sometimes even without you realizing it. But when you are nervous, you start thinking about every word, and suddenly your English feels slow and heavy. This is normal, and it happens to many learners. The key is to create situations where you can practice speaking without pressure, so you can train that relaxed version of yourself. Think about the moments when you speak your native language. Maybe you are talking with a friend while walking, or maybe you are telling a funny story at dinner. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are not trying to be perfect. You are just sharing something. This is the same energy you need to bring into your English. One mistake many learners make is treating every English conversation like an exam. In an exam, you focus on grammar, on spelling, on rules. But in real life, people don't care about those things. They care about the feeling. They want to connect with you. Imagine someone telling you about their day with a few mistakes, but with a smile, with energy, with simple words. You would probably feel more connected to them than to someone who speaks perfectly but with no emotion. Here is a simple shift you can try. Instead of asking yourself, "Am I speaking correctly?" ask yourself, "Am I making this person understand me?" That little change of focus removes pressure. Because the truth is, people are not counting your mistakes. They are listening to your meaning. Let's take another example from daily life. Imagine you are at work and your colleague says, "Hey, what's up?" If you answer with a formal, "I am doing well, thank you for asking," it feels a little distant. But if you answer with, "I'm good, thanks, and you?" it feels real. It's a small difference, but it changes the energy of the conversation. This is why practicing real expressions is so powerful. Expressions like, "No worries," "Sounds good," "That's awesome," or "I get it." These short, simple phrases carry a lot of natural energy. And the best part? They are easy to learn and easy to use. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might say, "But I don't live in an English-speaking country, so how can I practice these things?" The answer is, you can create your own practice environment. For example, when you are watching a series, don't just watch. Stop and repeat one line out loud. Try to copy the tone and rhythm. If a character says, "That's crazy," say it exactly like them. Do it 5 times. Feel it in your mouth. This is how you build natural habits. Another way is to talk to yourself. Yes, it might feel strange at first, but it works. Pretend you are explaining your day to someone. For example, this morning I woke up late, so I had to rush. Then I made coffee, and honestly, it was too strong. These are simple sentences, but they are exactly the type of sentences you need in real conversations. Let's add another layer here: storytelling. People love stories, and telling short stories is one of the best ways to practice natural English. A story doesn't need to be long or complicated. For example, yesterday I tried a new restaurant. The food was good, but the service was slow. That's it. Simple, but real. And when you tell stories like this, people naturally want to continue the conversation. They might ask, "What did you eat?" Or, "Would you go back there?" This creates natural flow. Here's a little exercise for you. Every day, tell yourself one short story about something that happened. Use only simple words. Don't try to be perfect. Just focus on sounding natural. Over time, you will notice that your English becomes smoother because you are practicing the way people actually speak. Another important detail is body language. Yes, even in English, your body speaks. When you smile, when you move your hands, when you look engaged, your words feel lighter. If you speak English with no expression, it feels robotic. But when you add body language, even simple words carry emotion. Now, let's talk about mistakes. Many learners freeze when they make a mistake. But mistakes are not the problem. The problem is stopping the conversation because of the mistake. Native speakers make mistakes too. They forget words, they change sentences halfway, they correct themselves, and they don't apologize for every little thing. You can do the same. If you say something wrong, just fix it naturally. For example, I went yesterday. That's natural. That's human. Here's something powerful to remember. People don't expect you to sound like a native speaker. They expect you to sound like yourself. They just want to understand you and connect with you. And when you let go of the idea of sounding perfect, you open the door to sounding natural. Now let me share a question with you that can change your practice. How would I say this if I were talking to a friend in my own language? Usually the answer is short and simple. So try to do the same in English. If in your language you would say, "Yeah, it was fun," then don't turn it into a long sentence in English. Just say, "Yeah, it was fun." That is the beauty of natural conversation. It's light. I want you to remember something I said earlier about chunks, those little pieces of language that go together. Practicing chunks is one of the fastest ways to sound natural. For example, instead of thinking of the words I, don't, and know separately, practice the chunk, I don't know. You will hear native speakers say it fast, almost like one word. If you can use chunks like this, you will sound much more natural without even trying. At this stage, you might be curious about the story I mentioned earlier, about the learner who made a big change. We are going to come back to that very soon. Her experience shows exactly how small adjustments can bring big results. But before we get there, I want you to reflect on your own practice. Ask yourself, am I practicing English in a way that makes me sound like a book, or in a way that makes me sound like me? Because the truth is, the world doesn't need another grammar robot. The world needs your voice, your stories, your way of speaking. And the good news is, you already have everything you need. Now, it's just about letting it flow naturally. So now you can see that speaking English naturally is not about using big words, and it's not about speaking perfectly. It is about speaking like yourself, in a way that feels light, clear, and real. We talked about keeping sentences simple, using contractions, paying attention to tone and pauses, and practicing with short stories and chunks. These small habits, when you use them every day, will help your English flow more like a conversation and less like a textbook. Do you remember the story I promised to share? One learner I worked with used to always prepare her sentences in her head before speaking. Her English was correct, but it sounded cold and distant. Then she made one small change. She started answering questions with shorter, simpler phrases, just like she would in her native language. For example, instead of saying, "I had the opportunity to meet my friends at a local restaurant," she simply said, "I went out with friends." That small shift changed everything. People responded to her with more energy, conversations lasted longer, and she felt free. That freedom is what I want you to experience too. Here is my challenge for you. Today, choose one sentence you normally say in a very formal way, and replace it with a simple, natural version. Use it in your next conversation, even if it feels new. That small step is how you start sounding natural. If this episode has given you ideas you can use, I invite you to support this community. Like this episode, subscribe, and share it with someone who also wants to feel free when speaking English. The more you practice this way, the more English will become your own voice, not just a list of rules. Remember, you don't need perfect English. You need your English, spoken with confidence and connection.